Well, we're joined now from Brisbane by Jasmuheen, who is the author of Living on Light. And how long did you go without eating?
I've been experimenting with this for about 6 years, but I prepared for this journey for well over 20 years. I'd been a meditator for a long period of time, a number of decades. I've been practicing vegetarianism, vegan, raw food, things like that as well. So it's a long journey. It's not an overnight journey. And we like to stress that if people at home do this without this level of preparation, they could experience a lot of problems.
Specifically, how long did you go without eating?
For me, on and off, well, pretty well just on water and tea for 2 years.
And did you lose weight?
No, because I treat the body as a biocomputer, the mind as a software program, and you can reprogram the body if you have a strong mind-body connection so that the body's weight will stabilize. Now, this assumes that you are being nourished. The woman you just had speaking about this said that we do need food, and that's 100% correct. A body does need food to survive. But that food can come in the form of prana or ki energy. And what I'd like to share with your view...
I beg your pardon?
What I'd like to share with you...
Go on.
What I'd like to share with your readers, your viewers, is that there's so much scientific experimentation being done on this already, like scientific Qigong exploration, which has been put together by one of the heads of the Chinese scientific community, a Professor Lu Zinying, and he talks about the state of bijou that people go into where they're living normal lives and they're not eating.
Okay,
very rare.
Sure.
Really drinking as well.
Where are they getting their sustenance from if they're not getting it from food?
Ki, the chi, the universal life force, or what we call prana, or if you're a religious person, you would say you are fed by the light of God, and obviously that's very hard to measure.
This is nonsense.
But with ki, it's not hard to measure.
This is just...
It's not nonsense
this is
when
just
you do the
if you don't
research.
eat, you die.
But that's most people's belief systems in the Western world, and that's why these studies are so powerful and important now. See, every second a child dies of hunger-related diseases.
Yes, look.
And I've found in my research that you can apply the lifestyles that we are living as ambassadors of light to take care of a lot of world health and world hunger-related problems.
I don't mean to belittle your beliefs, and I'm sure they're sincerely held, but there is a woman who is dead in Scotland as a consequence of following your principles.
Yes, we don't really know what happened in that situation.
Well, we know that the diary she left behind...
I think we need to leave.
Well, we don't need to leave it, because we know that the diary that she left behind that was found with her body makes extensive references to your book and your ideas. She starved herself to death.
Well, also, too, who controls the time of birth and who controls the time of death? There are people with very strong connections with the divine who feel that that is a contract between you and the divine. I think it's very important that people are well prepared, because I hate the fact that there are people who could possibly do damage to themselves from following these type of practices. But we'd like to stress that we are not a cult. This is simply a sharing of information that will allow people to take greater control over their health, their happiness, their vitality, if it is practiced and well prepared for properly.
How many other people have died as a consequence of following this belief system?
There was a woman in Australia who went into a coma and was taken off life support systems later when she was going through the 21-day process with a man called Jim Pesnak, and he's awaiting trial at this point. The concern is not that she couldn't live on light from what the police have been investigating, because they've found enough information now through other fields of research with the yogis to say this is possible. Their concern was he negligent in calling the police before, the ambulance beforehand.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Don't try this at home, as they say.
Jasmuheen. Ooh, what an exotic and fanciful name. Sounds like what you call some magical sorceress in Dungeons and Dragons. Also, she was born in Australia, and that's not her real name. Her real name is Ellen Grieve, and she looks like this, so not really doing the magical sorceress thing, for me. And also, she is a bold-faced, unapologetic, lying liar. Jasmuheen, which is what I'm going to choose to call her on the basis that she did technically actually change her name, so we'll go with it. is an infamous proponent of something that is generally referred to as either Inedia, pranic nourishment, or, more commonly, Breatharianism. All of these things effectively amount to you apparently don't actually have to eat or even drink water to live. You can survive off of just breathing and getting sunlight from magical energy that surrounds all of us. Also, my lawyers tell me that I should really stress, no, you cannot do that. We have to eat food. This is a basic fact of our existence, of the vast majority of organisms' existence. Basically, everything needs to consume something to survive. It varies quite a bit depending on what particular organism we're referring to, but for the most part, all of us need to take in something. And for us, it is air, food, and water. These are the basic things that we need. But not according to Breatharianism. No. That's all hogwash and ridiculous. The origins of this particular idea date back quite a ways. The earliest mention of it is in a Rosicrucian text that dates back to 1670 called Comte de Gabalis. This particular writing attributes the origin of the practice to a physician and occultist named Paracelsus, who lived from 1493 to 1541. The text explains that he had lived several years by only taking 1/2 scruple of solar quintessence, which is not a thing. Listen, I just want to warn you now, this story is gonna get wild. There are also some other sources in Buddhism, and there was also the case of Prahlad Jani, who was an Indian sadhu. A sadhu is a religious figure in Hinduism, as well as Jainism, who has renounced the worldly life. Jani claimed that he had lived without food and water for more than 70 years. Doctors at Sterling Hospital did investigate these insane claims in 2003 as well as in 2010, and the study did conclude that Prahlad Jani was able to survive under observation for 10 days without food and water. He had not had to go to the bathroom, nor did he have any need for dialysis. But both tests were flawed. Neither time was he sufficiently observed, and it's believed that he likely was cheating somehow, though it isn't clear when exactly he would have taken in random food or water. Additionally, neither study actually published the findings properly, so not really buying that there, Chief. Another individual involved in this is Wiley Brooks, who was the founder of the Breatharian Institute of America. He first introduced himself to the public in 1980 when he appeared on the TV show That's Incredible, claiming that he didn't eat or drink. He didn't have to, and you don't have to. It won't cause any ill effects at all. It's also worth mentioning in 1983 he was observed leaving a Santa Cruz 7-Eleven with a Slurpee, a hot dog, and Twinkies. So yeah, he was also a liar. Anyway, the point is that none of this is real at all. Scientific assessments of such an idea have shown what is the bleeding friggin' obvious to anyone with a functional brain, in that fasting for extended periods of time, not consuming anything, leads to starvation, dehydration, and eventual death. Yes, you will die by doing this. I think most of you will admit that, but this is the internet, and there's some wild takes on the internet. We got a whole bunch of people claiming the earth is flat, and if you actually think that, I just want you to know, please, you're wrong, and you're not smart. You don't sound smart, no one thinks you're smart, you're objectively wrong. While I'm on the subject, we landed on the moon. Got a lot of comments about that when I talked about NASA last week, and you're wrong too. All of you are wrong, and I have no tolerance for blatant misinformation. But back on topic, don't starve yourself. okay? Don't do that. Even hippies, the most hardcore hippies, believed you needed to eat something. Even vegans acknowledge we need to eat something. Now, there's debate of whether or not we should be allowed to eat meat or not, if that's moral or whatever. That's an entirely different discussion. But the point is, every sensible human being on the planet agrees we need to eat something to survive. Alright? I just want to make that clear before we move into Jasmuheen, because she is arguably the most infamous of pretty much every person involved in Breatharianism, mostly because she's out of her mind and has actually gotten people killed. Yeah, unlike a lot of the scammers I've discussed, whose major crime involved taking people's money, no, Jasmuheen has directly caused the deaths of multiple individuals with her stupid ideas, especially since she herself does not actually do what she says she does, because, well, she's still alive. I think it would be the direct evidence of that. She was born in 1957 in New South Wales, Australia, and is of Norwegian descent. Her parents had moved there during World War II. For the vast majority of her early adult life, she was pretty normal, honestly. She worked a comfortable job in the finance industry, developing her skills in that field when it came to management and other such things, and had she simply done that and lived a completely average life, you know, probably wouldn't be talking about her, wouldn't even know who she is, and also a few people would still be alive, that too. But in 1992 things went completely off the rails, because she started combining her experience in business and finance with the art of meditation. She started selling access to workshops as well as seminars on this particular topic, and it was at that point that she changed her name to Jasmuheen. Now, on its own, meditation isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can help relax you, and some people consider it a very spiritual experience. Combining it with stuff like yoga and other things, there's nothing wrong with that. But, it's when the breatharianism thing came in. See, Jasmuheen was, and still very much is, a proponent of what she calls pranic nourishment. That's a term she used, which is just another word for breatharianism, and she claims to live without food or fluid intake of any kind, but she goes on to explain how this is possible. See, prana nourishment refers to, well, prana. In yoga, Ayurveda, as well as Indian martial arts, prana, which is the Sanskrit word for breath, life force, or vital principle, permeates reality on all levels, including inanimate objects. In Hinduism, it's sometimes described as originating from the sun and connecting the elements. Now, any of you who've seen my video on the karate guy who pretended that he could move stuff with his mind, and he mentioned how he was using ki, relating to Far Eastern religions, prana's a very, very similar element. Also, no scientific proof it actually exists. However, from a religious perspective, I'm not going to question it because that's a religious perspective. And if your religious beliefs tell you that prana is in fact a thing, that's one thing. However, the core religious principles do not state that it is possible to live exclusively off of prana, just that it exists. Jasmuheen, however, claims that this is the case. She is living exclusively off of prana. She doesn't need food or water or any of that normie stuff. She just needs the magic energy in the air. Many of her followers bought her books, bought her courses, and gave her all this money for what amounts to effectively complete and total hogwash. And she became so infamous that the Australian version of the television show 60 Minutes decided to feature her, but not to promote her, but to challenge her to demonstrate that she could in fact live without food and water. They brought in a supervising medical professional named Dr. Barris Wenk, and Jasmuheen did in fact attempt to demonstrate that she didn't need to eat or drink water. Also, within 2 days, the doctor found that Jasmuheen was showing symptoms of acute dehydration, stress, and high blood pressure, all associated with not actually consuming any food or water for an extended amount of time. She would claim that this was a result of the pollution in the air. It's all humanity's fault, you see. We put all these carbons and these bad things in the atmosphere and in the water and ruining nature, and because of that we need to eat. As we all know, cavemen never ate or hunted for anything ever, because that wasn't a thing back then. We didn't have pollution. Cavemen didn't need to, do that at all. Ancient civilizations in general didn't need to eat. What's eating? Why do we even do agriculture, honestly? I mean, it seems to be a complete waste of time. But they decided to humor this claim about the polluted air, and on the third day, they moved her to a mountainside retreat that was 15 miles away from the city with much fresher air. She seemed much more uplifted at this point, and claimed that she could now successfully practice her art of Inedia. She didn't need to eat. There was no pollution to worry about, no toxins permeating her pure, holy body. But, things only got worse from there. Because as the filming went on, her speech slowed down, her pupils dilated, and she would lose up to 14 pounds. On the fourth day, she acknowledged that she had lost some weight, but she said she felt fine. Everything was great. Absolutely, 100%. She certainly wasn't dying before everybody's eyes. It'll be okay. Dr. Wank assured her that, no, actually, you are very dehydrated, and you are going to die. Her pulse was double what it was when she started, and if they went any further, they were risking kidney failure. As Jasmuheen's condition continued to deteriorate, she insisted, no, it's fine. Everything's great. I'm wonderful. But the doctor was like, no, actually, you're dying, quickly. So they stopped filming.
Oh, when I look back at my experience with 60 Minutes, for me, it gave me one of the most beautiful gifts I could ever imagine. I find personally for me that when I go through a very tough experience in my life, there's always at the end of that the most incredible gift. And the gift that 60 Minutes gave me was great humility. What was recorded, how they presented it to the world, was not my truth, was not how I interpreted it. I was strong, I was healthy, I could have easily passed their test, but they chose to finish it on day 5 for reasons they said, which were not my truth. They chose to put it out into the airways, the program they did. They wanted to show the world that Jasmuheen was deluded, and they probably did a good job with that. It destroyed my reputation in the world on one level, which gave me the gift of freedom. From there, I could say anything I wanted to say, and people accepted it because they said, she's just deluded. We already know that. So that was great freedom. They gave me the gift of having experienced all of that, and I don't need to go into details. They know what transpired, And the gift it gave me was humility. And from that, from being made humbled to having my reputation destroyed, all of this, what was out in the field from this, later, a few months later, I had the most amazing experience in meditation that I couldn't even begin to describe, that filled my being with so much love and so much joy and so many gifts. And I know that if I hadn't have had that humility, I would not have had that experience.
But Jasmuheen would continue to maintain that she doesn't need any food, though she does occasionally treat herself to something once in a while. A few cups of tea, or maybe even a glass of water. And if she's feeling bold and wants some flavor, she'll also like a piece of chocolate or even a mouthful of cheesecake, because, those are some comfort foods. But outside of that, she eats nothing. Absolutely not. Except that visitors to her rather large villa in the Chapel Hill area of Brisbane have pointed out that her refrigerator is almost always full of a heck of a lot of food. Though Jasmuheen claims that this is not for her, it's for her husband, well, her second husband at that point, named Jeff Ferguson, who, by the way, it's probably worth mentioning, is himself a convicted fraudster. Yeah! Okay. She would somewhat backpedal on her claims over time, starting to insist that no, sometimes she does eat, just a little bit. She eats about 300 calories per day. Not a lot of food, but, just a little bit. Every so often, you gotta treat yourself, which is not what you were saying at first. You were saying 0 food, now you're saying 300 calories. I'd be starting to think, if I didn't already think it, that you are just a liar. But she says she supplements herself with an intake of cosmic particles, or even microfood, which is also one of her terms for the prana I mentioned before. She also said she has not yet mastered the ability to be fluid-free. which again is not what you were saying beforehand. You're just making up more falsehoods to lean back into the fact that you have been eating this whole time, okay? Just say that. You don't have to do this, alright? You don't have to pretend that you're super special magic lady, okay? Everyone eats. It's okay to eat. It's okay to drink. And if you really want to be a hippie about it, then be vegan and don't eat meat. You know, don't hurt anything else that's living. It's possible to consume stuff without doing that these days. But you have to eat something, and telling people that they don't is tremendously dangerous, mostly because there are people on this planet, they walk among us, that are in fact gullible idiots. Like flat earthers. She received an award in the year 2000 called the Bent Spoon Award by Australian skeptics, which is an award presented to the perpetrator of the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudoscientific piffle. Nice. And in 2005, James Randi, because of course he had to step in at some point, did offer her the James Randi Educational Foundation $1 million prize to demonstrate her claims. Randi has offered that to a lot of different people that have been making up hogwash over the years, and James Randi never had to give any of them $1 million, including Jasmuheen because she never successfully demonstrated her abilities to him at all. Oh, yeah, it gets weirder from here. Yeah, I know, we're already really weird, but man, Jasmuheen continues to maintain that some of her beliefs are based on the writings and, more recently, channeled material of the Count of Saint Germain, a somewhat mysterious historical figure who was known to be a prominent philosopher, but also made some ridiculous claims like being 500 years old. Also, more recently channeled material. Are you talking with ghosts now? Are we going there? You know, that's not even the craziest thing so far. I don't even know what she then said. I'm sorry, I just read it again. Every time I read it, it sounds just so stupid. She claimed that her DNA expanded from 2 to 12 strands, and this was so that she could take in more hydrogen. I don't know what's going on anymore. I think we've lost the plot. As you can imagine, her extra strands of DNA have not been scientifically verified in any way. She was even offered $30,000 to prove that this was the case with a simple blood test, because that would be pretty easy to verify, but she said no, making the excuse that you can't view spiritual energy under a microscope. Yeah, but you said your DNA expanded. DNA is a very physical thing. That's a real thing. If it expanded to 12 strands, then it should be viewable. Are there ghost strands in there? Is the Count of Saint Germain in your blood? Like, what's that? What's happening? She also claimed that the challenge was a deliberate attack on her beliefs, and that she refuses to act as some kind of guinea pig to prove her paranormal attributes, which are obviously made up. Listen, if they're real, just show us. It's actually very easy to do, but the one time you tried it, you failed, and you never did it again, because you know that you're lying, and have been this whole time. But when we started this, I mentioned she's killed people. Verifiably. And it's at least 5. Which is 5 more than there should be, in my opinion. Generally, when it comes to talking about people, you usually would like to hear that they've killed 0 people. But she's killed 5. Not directly. Obviously, she wasn't exactly holding the knife, but they died based off of her own publications. And this is also as of 2012, so it might even be more now, who knows. She herself denies any responsibility for any of these deaths, but, I disagree. Because if you hadn't been making up nonsense this whole time, all the people I'm about to talk about would still be breathing. And more importantly, eating and drinking, which is all they had to do to not die. Lani Marcia Roslyn Morris was a 53-year-old Melbourne resident. She passed away in 1999 while attempting the breatharian diet, which generally involves just not eating anything. You know, most medical professionals actually refer to it as anorexia, in my experience, except I'm fairly confident most anorexics will at least drink water. Two other individuals, Jim Vadim Pesnak, 63 years old, and his wife Eugenia, 60 years old, were jailed for 6 years and 2 years respectively because of their involvement in Morris's death. Pesnak, in particular, had intentionally delayed seeking medical attention because, well, they thought that it was fine, that she was ascending or something. And you know what? Yeah, she was ascending. To the afterlife. Not in any way that you were expecting, buddy. Jasmuheen would make the excuse that Morris's practice of Inedia was not coming from a place of integrity and did not have the right motivation. This woman is dead, and you're saying she only died because she wasn't motivated enough? She didn't have the integrity to just not eat and drink? You're a horrible person, and I really want you to know that. But that's just one example. There was also Verity Lynn, who died of hypothermia and dehydration, as well as having a significant lack of nutrition because she wasn't eating, over in Scotland. Her diary mentioned a lot of Jasmuheen's teachings, and her body was found outside in a tent. In 2012, a Swiss woman died of starvation after having attempted to survive purely on light, which is something that Jasmuheen also teaches in one of her many, many, many books full of nothing but hogwash. In 2017, a Dutch woman who was living with 3 other practitioners of Breatharianism died under rather mysterious circumstances. The 3 other members of that household were suspected of withholding her from seeking adequate medical care for her condition. Her condition being not eating. One of the most avoidable conditions, actually, in medical science. It's very easy to treat. Usually involves consuming a friggin' cheeseburger. The end of that same year, a 22-year-old German man named Finn Bogomil died on the Caribbean island of Dominica. He was in the middle of fasting and told his friends and family members of his plans to only live off of sunlight, which did not work because we are not plants. And in fact, that's not even a fair comparison, because plants also drink water. The Cult Information Center, or CIC, which is a British anti-cult organization, has been contacted numerous times about Breatharians by their concerned friends and family, because, well, they're going to die and they'd rather their loved ones not do that. The CIC doesn't consider Breatharianism on its own a cult, since it's just a concept, but it is something that is practiced by a lot of actual cults. And in their opinion, as well as mine, they were highly critical and very concerned about the implication that if it doesn't work, the person is simply blamed for not being holy enough, or whatever the excuse is, because that's clearly not true. To any logical human being. Listen, guys, again, I can't reiterate this enough. You need to eat and drink, okay? You will die otherwise. I shouldn't have to say it. It's 2025. This is basic science. This is basic biology. This is basic life instincts. One of the first things we do when we're born is, well, we want to eat. When we're in the womb, all we're doing is being fed by our moms. That's a completely normal part of biology. You can't just live off the sun. We can't do photosynthesis, and even that requires water, which Breatharianism says you also don't need, which is hilarious, because water is the origin of all life on the planet, you utter morons. And you know what makes this worse for me? And I mean deeply, deeply, outrageously upset. She's on YouTube. Yep. She's still doing it. Even now. Now, fortunately, her views are a lot lower than, say, mine. Thank God. So I don't think there's too many that are buying into her nonsense, but as of this recording, her last upload was just a month ago, so she is still pretty active, and that's alarming. Listen, this woman's nonsense has gotten people killed, and frankly, I simply don't even believe that she believes in it. I believe that she is, in fact, a scammer. She's used the practice to steal money from the gullible, looking to uplift themselves with some kind of hippie nonsense. But the problem here is that it's all a farce. You have to eat. You have to drink. You just do. And it's okay. Honestly, why would you want to be able to go around saying you don't need to do those things? First of all, a lot of foods are delicious, and you enjoy eating them. Do you want to live your life without ice cream? What kind of psychopath wants to live their life without ice cream? My life would be significantly poorer if I could not enjoy a cookie dough blizzard from Dairy Queen on occasion. Okay? Just putting it out there. But even if you do think it's worth it, what kind of frickin' superpower is that? Imagine walking into the Justice League and saying, I would like to join as I am a superhero. And Superman's like, oh really? Excellent. Nice to meet you. What is your superpower? I don't eat or drink. Right, see, how does it help you fight crime, though? Well, I don't need to eat. Or drink. Yeah, right, I got the super strength thing, as well as the laser vision and the cold breath, flying, I could do a lot of things. Most of us can do a lot of things. I mean, Batman over here has, like, well, money, a lot of it, something, which, you don't. I don't see how this benefits us, is really what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to be rude, you know, it's one of those things. Do you see how stupid it is? Like, it's not even helpful to you. It doesn't make you any closer to the spiritual realm or anything like that. Listen, just do some yoga, say a prayer. I don't care what your spiritual beliefs are. But I assure you, whatever higher power you believe in, or even lack thereof, they want you to keep eating. They want you to live. You were put on this planet to survive, to live, to function, to exist, and in order to facilitate that, you really need to continue eating and not listen to this absolute troglodyte. At least 5 people are dead because of this idiot, and for what? So she can make a bunch of money off of a complete and utter lie? Absolute scum. That's outrageous. And yeah, she's still active. But fortunately, most of her popularity has faded, and I think most people, knock on wood, readily admit that her claims are, of course, ridiculous. I mean, I know I've made fun of both flat earthers and moon landing denialists in this video, because they're just as wrong. Also, both of those groups still acknowledge that food is important to survival. This goes beyond anything else. It transcends all other forms of stupidity. I'm just saying. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.